Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Car Conversations. Today I am asking the question, have you swept around your front door? Yes, literally and figuratively. And here's why I'm asking that question. So today I was presented a question by someone, and they were inquiring about why a neighbor hadn't done a certain thing in their yard. And they looked at me patiently waiting for an answer, right? And so all I could come up with was, maybe they didn't want to, right? Or maybe because they didn't feel like it was necessary, or maybe they didn't have the financial resources, or whatever. Out of boatloads of maybes. And it got me to thinking about social media, how on social media, so many people, I see so many posts talking about what other people should do with their children, what other people should do with their cars, what other people should be wearing, and so on and so forth. And I've fallen victim to that as well, whereas I comment quite a bit on things such as hair weave and nails and things like that, lashes and things, and I use those because I just feel when people begin to talk about lack of financial resources or debt or poor credit, my thing is, you wouldn't have certain things going on in your life if you prioritize, if you focused on the things that make sense. And those things to me just doesn't make sense when you're trying to level up your financial standing. But although I feel I have a good reason for feeling the way that I feel, it still doesn't justify it, right? It doesn't make me right just because I feel like I have a good reason for feeling the way that I feel. It doesn't justify it, because at the end of the day, people do what they do because they want to do what they do, and it's just that simple. And we do not have the right to question what someone else is doing. Right? We don't have to do that, but yet we do it anyway. And to question what someone else is doing, what we're doing inadvertently is judging individuals. We're judging them for the decisions that they've made, and we don't have that right. We don't have that right. And so I asked the question, have you swept around your door today? Because we're always quick to point out everyone else's shortcomings. We're always very quick to point out what someone else isn't doing, or what they should be doing, or why this, why that. We're always questioning someone else's reasoning, when in fact, we don't know whether or not they have a limitation. Maybe the person isn't doing what was suggested because maybe they're unable to financially, or maybe they're unable to physically, or quite frankly, maybe they just don't know how, or maybe they don't know it should be done, or maybe they don't know anyone who can assist them and direct them on the right path. And so we have to learn to not only mind our own business, understand that it's okay to ask someone if they need help versus pointing out their shortcomings. It's okay to say, to ask, to knock on the door and say, hey, I noticed XYZ is happening in your yard. Were you aware? Did you know that you can put so-and-so there? Or, I had a friend once, or I had a family member once who had a similar situation, and here's what they did. Or, you know, if you need some help, I can help you with that. You know, let me know what you need. And I think the neighbor would appreciate that more than the sneering and the laughter or the rolling of the eyes because they're not doing what you feel they should do, right? Sometimes people don't do because they don't know. And a lot of times they don't even know that they don't know, right? You can't expect someone who has always lived in an apartment complex to know when they should be cutting grass, or if grass should be cut at all, or how to take care of a yard or garden or whatever the case may be. You can't expect them to know these things just because you've been doing it all of your adult life. Doesn't mean that they know. And so they would probably appreciate it more if you took the time to say, hey, you know, I'm cutting my grass this afternoon. You know, I noticed your grass was getting a little tall. You want me to take care of that for you? Now, that doesn't mean that that's something that you have to do for them on the regular basis. But what you're doing is you're being neighborly, number one, and you're drawing their attention to the situation so that now they know, oh, okay, when the grass gets about 4 inches tall or whatever, I probably should start cutting it, because if I don't, the neighbor's going to say something, and I notice he's cutting his grass, right? Sometimes you have to help people along to a starting point versus always pointing fingers and talking about, they parent need to learn how to parent, or, it's the parent's fault. Or, they should have learned that at home. And, that's the high and mighty righteous way of thinking. And unfortunately, it brings no solution. And most of all, those individuals who you are judging could probably become a really good friend. Could probably become a really good friend. I'll leave you with this short story. A few years ago, I had a brand new neighbor to move across the street from me. He's now deceased. God rest his soul. But a neighbor moved across the street from me, and I had been on the street for about 10 years before he showed up. And my grass needed to be cut. My son was staying at his dad's house over the summer, and my lawnmower had broke, and so my son didn't have anything to cut the grass with. And this neighbor hadn't been across the street maybe 2 months. He went out to cut his grass, and my doorbell rang. Right? I wasn't expecting anyone. So I went to the door, and I was surprised that this guy was standing at my door like, okay, what is this all about, right? Of course, I immediately judged him to be coming to my house to flirt, right? Or what have you. Or, in worst case scenario, tell me there was something going on with my car or something like that, right? And so the next words that came out of his mouth really surprised me, and I felt really bad. And what he said was, I'm getting ready to cut my grass. Do you want me to cut yours too? What? This man had been on the block all of 2 months, maybe. I've been in this community 10 years, and no one has ever taken the time to ask me if I needed help. And the first thing I did was judge this man because he was knocking on my door, ringing my bell. The first thing that I could come up with was that he was trying to flirt with me or what have you. Not once did I ever think that this man would ask me if I needed help. He said, I'm getting ready to cut my grass. You want me to cut yours too? So of course, I responded with a pleasant yes. Thank you. I would appreciate that. And you know what? By the way, thank you for looking out. My lawnmower is broken and my son's not home. He said, no problem. Anytime you need help, let me know. And he politely went back across the street. That was it. That was it. And ever since that day, whenever he and I would see each other outside, he'd politely wave and say, hey, good morning, or hey, good afternoon, or hey, how are you? And nothing more. There was nothing else to it, right? So to sum it up, let's be mindful of how we make assumptions or what we feel that other people should be doing, because what we feel other people should be doing, they may not be doing because there's a lack. They may not be able to do. They may not be financially able to do. They may not be physically able to do. They may not know that it needs to be done, whatever that it may be. And then most importantly, before we judge, before we sneer, before we make assumptions, how about just taking a moment to be neighborly and say, hey, you know what? I noticed blah, blah, blah. If you need help with that, just feel free to let me know. I'm there for you. With that being said, I wish you an amazing day. Be safe, and most of all, listen. Take care.